What's up guys, it's Mitch here from the DIYrecordingstudio.com, and we're back with another awesome solution to your home studio recording sessions. Today we're going to look at the reason why you should always cut frequencies before you boost them when EQing. So basically what most first time mix engineers or mix enthusiasts or people that are just getting into DAWs for the first time, they'll grab an EQ and they'll start turning up high end or turning up low frequencies on a kick drum and going, oh wow, listen to that low end. And you know, like it's a natural thing to do. It's a natural thing to want to hear how you can manipulate frequencies, and we've all been there and done that. I know that I would often reach straight away for an EQ and start boosting frequencies. But there's one kind of small caveat when it comes to that, and it's just that when you're boosting those frequencies, all you're really doing is turning stuff up in the mix. And there's a better way to do things, potentially. So one option that we're going to look at today, and it's kind of my number one rule when it comes to EQ, is that you should always cut frequencies from an instrument or from a mix first before you boost any other frequencies. So this is what we actually call subtractive EQ, and subtractive EQ is when you start removing stuff, i.e. unwanted frequencies, from your different tracks, say your kick drum, snare drum, vocals, whatever. And you remove those frequencies first because then you start to create more space in your mix for the other instruments. So that's as opposed to just going in, turning frequencies up, and then getting kind of an all over the place, lopsided, potentially kind of muddy mix, I think is what can happen when you don't start removing the unwanted frequencies first. So I'll take you through an example of what subtractive EQ is and some easy ways to apply it, and we can have a bit of a look at how it can actually clean up the mix quite a bit. So let's go in and we'll jump into Cubase and have a quick look at this session that I've got here. And it is an amazing track called Naturally by Alan Stone. And I'll put a link to where I got the stems from below. They're from the Telefunken live session. So Telefunken, the microphone company, well, they're an audio company. They make a lot of products. They did these amazing sessions. They still do them, and they go around and do these amazing recordings, and they offer the stems up to engineers to basically listen to their mics in a raw setting, and the recordings are amazingly engineered. I totally recommend that any of you go out and have a look at these stems. They're quite incredible. Get them, muck around and try mixing with them. They've got some amazing artists in there, and they're just some of the best tracks that you'll ever get your hands on, because some of those microphones are just incredibly expensive. Some of them I wish I could have, and may never ever be lucky enough to afford. So definitely go there, definitely check it out. So let's jump into our session. Cool. Here we go.
Respect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips. My body's right, the world is sick.
Cool. So if you listen there, I've just done the most basic of mixes. I've just done levels and pan. I haven't EQ'd anything yet. I've got a couple of things in place, but they're bypassed. Nothing is actually working right now. But yeah, it's just level and panning, and the mix sounds pretty good already because the microphones they've used are quite great. The engineers there are great. The musicians are fantastic. And it's just an amazing track. Very well composed track. So it's going to sound good. That's what you want. But we can always make it sound better. So what I've done here on the kick channel, I'll solo the kicks here. What we've got is a kick in and kick out, and I've then gone and grouped those. So I'll show you what I did here. I'll just unlink those two channels. So there's the kick in. And there's the kick out. You can tell the kick in is has a lot more beta, and the kick out has a lot more thud to it, as you'd expect. And what I like to do is group them and blend them and then process the group instead of processing both kick drums. It's just an easier way to work. And why do two lots of processing when you can do one? So that's my sort of go-to thing. Anyway. Cool. So there's the two. And I think that sounds pretty good. I might turn it up a little bit. I like to have my kick drum sitting at about -10 dB on the meters. That's pretty good. I wouldn't want it any louder than that. And that's a whole other mix tutorial maybe in the making, the 10 dB rule on the kick drum. Some of my students know what I'm talking about. But yeah, if you'd like to see a video on that, on how to get a good balanced mix, hit me up in the comment section down below. Alright, so let's have a look at one of my favorite EQs, the SSL E channel. I'm going to show you what I've done here. It's still bypassed. Okay. First off, I like to add a little roll off on any microphones, just to roll off anything below 30 Hertz. I don't really think there's probably any issues with these tracks. They probably already applied roll offs anyway, but it's always good practice to roll off anything under 30 Hertz that might be causing any rumble. And then we'll head down to the low mid frequencies. Now, kick drums are notoriously boxy sounding in the low mid range. So I'll activate the EQ so you can have a listen. And I'll just zero this. Cool. So this is the kick drum with no processing really. And I'm going to turn up those low mids. And you can hear those low mid frequencies. They're quite boxy sounding. I like to refer to them as boxy sounding. And it's usually around 400 Hertz. So instead of boosting the low frequencies, what you can do is start removing those low mids instead. And let's have a listen to what that sounds like. Listen as I dial it in. Cool. So it's subtle, right? But listen when I bypass it. Now on. Off. The kick drum instantly sounds like it's got a bit more bottom end. The beta is more pronounced. The attack is more pronounced. And you've kind of just got this rounded sound of a kick drum. It's great. So let's have a listen in the mix now.
The wasting hips, the body's right, the world is sick, world is sick. Calorie news around the neck. Don't.
Cool. So it sounds pretty good. We haven't had to turn anything up yet. And I think it actually does start to create some space. Listen to the relationship between the kick and the bass, which is a Wurlitzer. In this, it's not actually the bass guitar, and listen to the space in the vocals as well.
Disrespect, disrespect, disrespect.
It's off.
Bills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips.
That's on.
The body's right, the world is sick, the world is sick. Calorie news around the neck. Don't let up.
So I think it sounds like it's just sitting in the mix a little better without adding any more low end yet, just taking away those honky frequencies. And it's not just kick drum, it's all the instruments that you can do this for. Let's go over to the snare and have a look at that. And what I might do is I might group the snare top and bottom. Actually, no, I won't do that because they've got different frequencies and stuff going on. Let's just solo the snare top. And I've linked those anyway. You know what? I might group them. Let's have a go. Let's just see. Let's group those tracks. Let's call it. That's usually how I like to label my tracks. Pop them here. Okay. And I'm going to apply an EQ. So I might actually go over. Let's copy it. Oop. There we go. Oop. There we go. Now, let's listen for some bad frequencies on that snare drum. Let's have a look. Usually it's in the mid-range somewhere. The snare without anything on it. Just start boosting those frequencies. It's okay around 400. Definitely getting some honky stuff around that 700 hertz. So let's cut there. There we go. Bit nicer tone to that snare drum. I'm going to bypass it now. On, off, sorry. On. Just sounds a bit tighter. But it's one of those things. When you start cutting frequencies rather than boosting them, it's subtle. It's not immediately obvious. But let's put it back in the mix and have a listen.
Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips.
Bypass.
My body's right, the world is sick, world is sick. Calorie news around the neck. Don't let up, disrespect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips. My body's right, the world is sick, world is sick.
Listen to this disrespect part here.
Around the neck. Don't let up, disrespect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics.
And I think what starts to happen is that once you've got the vocals and the snare drum accenting at the same time, without the cut that we've made, the snare and the vocals slightly start to compete with each other. But as soon as you remove those low-mid frequencies, where there's obviously a lot of vocal information, they don't fight as much. It actually creates a little bit of space when the snares hit and the vocals are accenting at the same time. You get the vocals just sitting on top of the snare drum a little more. It's subtle, but have a listen.
Stressing on the wasting hips.
Off.
My body's right, the world is sick, world is sick. Calorie news around the neck.
Now on.
Don't let up, disrespect, disrespect,
Off.
disrespect. Popping pills and posting.
I think it's really subtle, which it should be. You shouldn't be doing anything too crazy in your mixes. You're just trying to create space. You know, you don't have to try and mess with something too crazy. If you've got a good sound source, you can just remove things subtly because the tracks already sound quite nice. It's just about getting rid of frequencies that are in the way of other things and creating more space in your mix. Another classic one that I like to go to is overheads. Now let's look at the overheads here for a second. Now overheads have this classic thing at around 700 Hertz. I'm going to show you now. If you listen to this, right about 600 there. Just this real, like, it sounds almost like like at the beach or something, you know, it's just this sort of sound. And I usually like to cut that out of my cymbals. Let's have a listen what it sounds like once that's removed. So that's with nothing. Now I've got this slightly cleaner sort of sounding overhead sound. Off. You hear that sort of sound. Now it's gone. Particularly in the left side of the mix, I can really hear this. That's off. Sort of sound. And now it's gone. You notice that? I mean, I can hear it. I don't know if everyone else can, but it's very apparent to me. If you can't hear it, let me know in the comment section down below. But yeah, it's basically just creating that space. Let's have a listen in the mix again, because it's always important to hear what you're doing in the context of the mix. It's actually the most important part of this.
Disrespect, disrespect, popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips. My body's right, the world is sick, world is sick. Can't love it, noose around the neck. Don't let up, disrespect, 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 popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips. My body's right, the world is sick, world is sick. Can't love it.
Cool. So just some real basic stuff. And then obviously on your overheads, you go a little further and probably roll off some of the low end here gently. Get that out of the way of the kick drum, you know. All this real thuddy low end.
Posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips. My body's right, the world is sick, world is sick. Can't love it, noose around the neck.
And then the kick drum itself becomes a little more prominent in the mix. Let's have a listen with that going.
Don't let up, disrespect, 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 popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips. My body's right, the world is sick, world is sick. Can't love it, noose around the neck. Don't let up, disrespect, disrespect.
And let's have a listen with just the kick, snare, and overhead solid. Remember, keep in mind we're just removing frequencies. And bypass those EQs. Now, get back on. Off. On. It's subtle, but even just over those few tracks, the two kick drums, the two snare drums, and the overheads, you start to end up with a much cleaner sound. You lose that honkiness out of the kick drum. The snare drum sounds tighter. The kick drum sounds tighter once the low end is slightly removed from the overheads. And then once that honkiness in the cymbals are removed, everything else seems like it's a bit more focused. The kick drum sounds more focused. The snare sounds tighter again. Everything's sort of moving the way it should. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, so that's just removing. We haven't even boosted a single frequency yet. We're just creating space in the mix. Okay, so let's have a listen in the mix with all those things bypassed, with the whole song playing.
Body's right, the world is sick, world is sick.
Now bypassed.
Around the neck, don't let up. Disrespect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics, stressing on the wasting hips. The body's right, the world is sick, world is sick. Calorie around the neck, don't let up. Disrespect, disrespect, disrespect. Popping pills and posting pics.
Cool, so I think it's pretty obvious there that you start to hear the drums become more focused in the mix. They're getting out of the way a little bit of the vocals. There's more space for the other instruments. And then you can imagine once you multiply that over the whole series of tracks with all the instruments just being slightly sculpted, you end up with this much tighter, much cleaner, more focused mix. Let me know what you think down in the comment sections below though. Do you think it was obvious that the subtractive EQ is doing a lot, or do you think it's a bit too subtle? Do you think you still need to boost? I don't know. I think obviously later on you'll probably still want to boost some frequencies and whatnot, but I think at the end of the day, the first thing you should be doing is removing those unwanted frequencies. Then you can get to boosting and stuff if you need to. Yeah, so we'll wrap it up there today. This is one of my first videos doing some EQ basics videos. I've got a heap more coming in the coming weeks. I'm going to do some stuff on compression basics as well, and overall mix basics, and anything small that you might want to that you might have questions about, just hit me up in the comment section below. I've always got ideas for things that I want to show you guys, but you guys might have some even better ideas, so let me know. And yeah, just hit me up in those comment sections down below. I'm keen to hear what you guys want to learn more about. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy the new YouTube channel and the new look, and yeah, we're just going to have a whole heap of exciting new content coming out really soon. I've got some awesome projects on the way. Yeah, so tune in next week. I'm Mitch from the DIYRecordingStudio.com, and I'll catch you soon.
Stressing on the wasting hips. The body's right, the world is sick, world is sick, world is sick. From flower to flower, growing free.
Cool, did it.